People in Israel are heading to the polls in an election that could see the country change course. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has battled hard for a new term, but it's looking tight. The final opinion poll released on Friday shows an estimate of seats in the new parliament for each major party. It had Mr. Netanyahu's Likud party behind the Zionist Union party led by Isaac Herzog. Herzog cast his ballot a short time ago in Tel Aviv. He's campaigned hard on the economy and the rising cost of living, and he's promising to restart peace talks with the Palestinians. A short time ago, Mr. Netanyahu said he would not consider going into government with the Zionist Union. CNN's Oren Lieberman joins us from a polling station in Jerusalem. What's the turnout looking like, Oren?
Well, Max, there's quite a line here already early in the morning. A lot of people getting out to vote early. The process here is one at a time, so it's going, it inevitably goes slowly, but just the turnout we've seen so far at this one polling station showing a very strong interest in the election. Of course, it's looking like a close race, so both sides trying to urge their voters out to get a good turnout to swing the Knesset and, of course, to swing the premiership here in Israel.
Benjamin Netanyahu, obviously a very well-known figure on the international scene. Mr. Herzog, not so much so, but in the way that Benjamin Netanyahu is talking, it seems as though this could be make or break for him, because he's not going to go into any sort of coalition.
Absolutely. He has insisted that from the very beginning. Isaac Herzog has also insisted he would not like a unity government here. Both sides saying that they are the fit leaders. Netanyahu knows very well where he stands in the polls. He knows in the final round of polling he's 4 seats behind, and he's made a big push here, a big media push as well, getting out there on local media, local TV, radio, and newspapers, making a big push to get his name out there and to improve his voter turnout for right-wing voters, and that's who he's been targeting, especially in these last few days. He suggested in an interview yesterday that with him as prime minister, there would be no Palestinian state. He said that would be simply a base for which radical Muslims could launch attacks on Israel. So he's really playing the right-wing support, trying to get his voters to come out there. Meanwhile, Isaac Herzog has been saying that if you're happy with the way things are, if you want the status quo, vote Netanyahu. If you want change, if you want different leadership than the last 6 years of Benjamin Netanyahu, vote for Isaac Herzog. So both sides making a strong push in these final days.
So it's a very significant vote in terms of sentiment as well within Israel and how they want to move ahead in the peace process, if indeed there is one.
And that hasn't been a big issue here. It hasn't been something we've heard a lot about as part of this campaign, but of course it is one of the biggest overall issues going back years here, the peace talks that have stalled over and over again. Netanyahu has made a commitment again, suggesting that he would not allow a Palestinian state under his leadership. Isaac Herzog has said a few times that he would be willing to restart peace talks. He hasn't committed to results. He hasn't said that he would bring peace, because he says he's not sure what the Palestinian state of mind is, or what the state of mind is of Palestinian authorities, but he has said that he would be very willing to restart those talks, Max.
Okay, Oren Lieberman, thank you. With you throughout the day as voting takes place. To select the 120 members of Israel's parliament, the Knesset, voters cast their ballot for a political party rather than the candidate. Seats are assigned in proportion to each party's percentage of the total vote. So a party that wins 15% of the vote would get 15% of seats in the Knesset. After the vote, the Prime Minister is selected from amongst Knesset members. Typically, the PM will be the party leader who is able to form a coalition government. A win for Isaac Herzog would bring a relatively little-known face into the international spotlight. Elise Labbert has this report about the Prime Minister's main challenger.
At Israel's holiest site for Jews, Isaac Herzog said a prayer to fulfill what he calls his destiny. In a country used to warriors turned politicians, he seems an unlikely candidate for prime minister.
I've always suffered from a certain underestimation.
Even his high-pitched voice has become an issue in this campaign, something the mild-mannered U.S.-educated lawyer known as Bougie has acknowledged when he poked fun of himself in this campaign ad using someone else's voice.
הסיבה שחלקכם עדיין מתלבטים אם להצביע עבורי היא הקול שלי.
He comes from political royalty, the Israeli version of the Kennedys. His grandfather, one of Israel's first chief rabbis, his uncle, a revered foreign minister, and Father Chaim Herzog was Israel's 6th president. Benjamin Netanyahu, falling behind in the polls, dismisses him as a lightweight who can't stand up to Iran or the Palestinians. In a recent campaign ad, portraying himself as a babysitter to Herzog. But Israeli voters, for the first time in years, are more focused on social and economic issues than security, something Netanyahu was not counting on when he made his high-profile and controversial speech to Congress this month. Herzog has gotten a boost from a growing get-out-the-vote movement with one goal: get rid of Bibi. The group's secret weapon is Jeremy Bird, a former Obama campaign strategist who schooled the group in grassroots tactics that helped propel Obama to office. Netanyahu is calling foul, pointing to a worldwide effort to unseat him.
There's fatigue. There's a lot of disappointment from Benjamin Netanyahu. I think his era is over.
If elected prime minister, Herzog says he would reignite peace talks with the Palestinians, and instead of picking a fight with the U.S., would work with Washington and its allies on a nuclear deal with Iran that's better than the one currently being negotiated.
Because security is not only the barrel of the gun. Security has got much bigger than that. It has to do with regional alliances. It has to do with our strategic alliance with the United States. Clearly, I'm ready for all of this.
Herzog calls Netanyahu's security platform an empty brand, pointing to an Iranian nuclear threat, stalled peace talks with the Palestinians, and deepening tensions with Washington. He says Israel is no safer than when the prime minister took office. Herzog says Netanyahu has failed, and he is now calling his bluff. Elise Labit, CNN, Jerusalem.
Well, just a couple of weeks ago, Mr. Netanyahu visited the US and spoke to Congress, arguing against any nuclear deal with Iran. Dor Gold, a former advisor to Mr. Netanyahu and president of the Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs, says he doesn't think the visit will impact the prime minister negatively with voters.
Normally, prime ministers, political people are very careful about taking any risks before an election. But the prime minister wasn't thinking politically. He was thinking about a very dangerous Iranian agreement with the West that's about to be signed. And he felt he had to put forward his views before the world. And he had an invitation from the third most powerful man in Washington, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, John Boehner. So he went. And it is true that some people misinterpreted his appearance as political grandstanding. It had nothing to do with politics, and it had a marginal effect on the polls. What it did show is that this is a prime minister who's determined to defend his country.